What's good people? Now, I don't know if it's just me, but I feel as though the UFC did wrong by Stipe. They did him dirty. Now, I'm not just speaking from this perspective of putting an old man in there and having him get beaten up even though he's a shell of his former self, because although Stipe may be an old man, he is a grown man and he did agree to compete in that fight. He did agree to fight Jon Jones, and I'm pretty sure the UFC compensated Stipe very much well, because he would not have left his full-time firefighting career to step in the octagon if the UFC was paying him peanuts. Now for me, where I feel the UFC did Stipe dirty is Stipe retired and it almost feels as if the UFC does not care. And this is nothing new. If you guys have been watching Stipe Miocic before he fought Jon Jones, he had a lot of beef with the UFC. The UFC and Dana White never really gave Stipe the respect he deserves. That's why it was quite an interesting turn of events when Dana started praising Stipe, calling him the GOAT, etc, etc, because when Stipe beat DC the second time they fought, Stipe didn't want Dana White wrapping the belt around him. He wanted his coach. Why? Because Dana White was giving DC all the opportunities at heavyweight, because Stipe wanted an immediate rematch after getting knocked out by Daniel Cormier, but the UFC didn't go with that, and Daniel Cormier ended up fighting the Black Beast and then getting a defense at heavyweight. And when Stipe was scheduled to fight Francis Ngannou for the first time, Dana White was yapping crazy about Francis Ngannou, praising Francis Ngannou, calling him the next Ford Escort, the dude punches like, etc, etc. And there was no respect shown towards Stipe. There was no praise for Stipe. The build-up was always on the side of whoever Stipe was fighting, be it Francis Ngannou, be it Daniel Cormier. Hence, in the build-up to this Jon Jones fight, it was an interesting direction for the UFC to now praise Stipe Miocic. They called him the GOAT. They called him the most accomplished fighter. Dana said he beat up Francis Ngannou like it was nothing. Now, if you are a layman, you would think that Dana now appreciates, or the UFC appreciates, Stipe Miocic, but if you observe carefully, you'll realize that the UFC was doing this only to hype up this fight with Jon Jones. They wanted to make it seem that when Jones inevitably beat Stipe, that he had destroyed this behemoth of a human being, forgetting that the man is 42. Heck, Dana did not even want to hear the people at the press conference after the fight say that Stipe is old, because he was like, listen, Stipe looked great. Jones made him look old. Jones made him look slow. That was the narrative after the fight was concluded. And if you feel as though the UFC was maybe doing good by Stipe, they were praising him, they finally started appreciating him, you'd be absolutely wrong to think that, because Stipe announced his retirement, and I'm sure the UFC would have anticipated Stipe would announce his retirement, but there was no video package for Stipe Miocic like Carla Esparza. There was no Joe Rogan in tears. There was no monumental moments. There was no appreciation. Stipe did not get that opportunity. He didn't even lay his gloves out on the octagon. It was just Joe Rogan saying, thank you so much, Stipe, for what you've done. Even after the fight, a lot of the analysts, the journalists were speaking about Jon Jones conquering Stipe Miocic. The UFC released a video saying this is why Jones is the GOAT, but there was no actual video package to appreciate Stipe Miocic, and hence I feel as though the UFC and Dana White did Stipe wrong. The praise was only coming in so that they could build up this fight and make it seem as if it is much grandeur than it actually is, because if you genuinely appreciated the dude, surely you'd have a package for him. Surely you'd make a video package appreciation for him. If you could make one for Carla Esparza, surely you would give him the sentimental farewell like Robbie Lawler, because he has accomplished way more than those two people. You know, there would be something there for him. There would be a video package saying this is why Stipe Miocic was the GOAT, but instead we're just getting a lot of Jon Jones ass kissing, a lot of Jon Jones is the GOAT, a lot of Jon Jones dismantles Stipe Miocic. No one wants to speak about the fact that Stipe was 42 years old. No one wants to speak about the fact that Stipe looked absolutely slow. It was just horrendous. But let me know what you guys think. Do you think the UFC did Stipe wrong, or do you feel as if that's the bet he made and he should lay? But personally, thank you so much, Stipe Miocic. I'm pretty sure he'll never hear this, but he is, for me, one of the legends, one of the people who made MMA much enjoyable. He has given us a lot of great moments in the octagon. I think personally, one of my favorite knockouts of Stipe Miocic was the Daniel Cormier one, because he was losing that fight, and I honestly felt as though it was a bit unjustified. No one looked at the context of why DC knocked him out. So for him to avenge his revenge against Daniel Cormier, for him to get that W, for him to show he has a high IQ, go to the body and then knock out DC, especially when the UFC was dick riding DC a lot at the time, which, to be fair, DC has always been accompaniment for the UFC, so it was understandable, but it just felt justified that the good guy finally regained his title. And he did. I always like it when the guy who is being put down ends up doing well against the people trying to suppress him. So yeah, that was my favorite knockout of Stipe, or my favorite moment of Stipe. Thank you guys.